Chapter 253. How about we make a bet? The man endured the pain and began to lick the dust on the table below him. The table had not been cleaned for who knows how long, and the dust was extremely thick. The man's face turned green, then red, then purple. Finally, the man managed to eat all the dust on the table. He glared at Yi Li with malice in his eyes, vowing to avenge this humiliation. "Now go and cook me some noodles," Yi Li said calmly. Box novel. Calm. The man was on the verge of tears. His finger had just been severed, and the pain was unbearable. Now he was being asked to cook noodles? Don't want to go? Yi Li looked at the man indifferently. "Senior, I'm in too much pain. Please let me go," the man pleaded. Yi Li gave a faint smile. "Actually, I have a way to relieve your pain." "What method?" the man quickly asked. Yi Li pondered for a few seconds and then said, "In this world, good people feel pain, and bad people feel pain too. Only dead people don't feel pain." As soon as these words were uttered, the man was terrified to his core. "Senior, I'll go cook the noodles for you right away," the man said in a panic. Before long, the man brought a bowl of noodles to Yi Li. Yi Li took a taste. It had the taste of home. "Senior, I've cooked the noodles for you. Can you let me go now?" the man asked cautiously. "Go ahead," Yi Li said calmly. The man was relieved and quickly ran out. As soon as he was out of sight, his face turned cold. After finishing the noodles, Yi Li decided to investigate the noodle shop's secrets using his heavenly spirit eyes. To his surprise, in a cave on the left side of the noodle shop, there were over 100 human captives, all of them ordinary people. It was rumored that on the east of the wilderness northern region, there was an organization conducting research on a drug that could enhance human genes, and these captives were probably used for experiments. As for the man, Yi Li could easily guess that he had gone to get reinforcements. In that case, he would wait here. As expected, not long after, the sharp-featured second-tier evolved being arrived with a dozen or so genetic warriors. These genetic warriors were all second-tier evolved beings, and they surrounded Yi Li. "Brat, you didn't expect me to turn the tables, did you? Hee, you broke one of my fingers. Now I'm going to make you pay back 100-fold," the man said coldly. Yi Li shook his head inwardly. He couldn't understand why there were so many ignorant ants in this world. "Do you really believe your eyes?" Yi Li said calmly, looking at the man. The man was puzzled. Yi Li was now surrounded by more than a dozen second-tier evolved beings, and yet he was saying something so nonsensical? Shouldn't he be afraid now? "Why don't we make a bet?" Yi Li continued. The man clenched his teeth. Although he saw Yi Li as a dead man already, he was curious to see what tricks Yi Li had up his sleeve. "Brat, what kind of trick do you think you can play?" the man sneered at Yi Li. Yi Li smiled. "Do you believe that I can show you their corpses in less than a second?" When the dozen or so second-tier evolved beings heard this, they were first surprised, then burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, brat, who do you think you are? Show me their corpses in less than a second? Ridiculous." The man's tone was full of disdain. Chapter 254. Hundreds of people in the cage. Yi Li smiled and said, "Not only can one make you see their corpses in 1 second, but one don't even need to use my hands." What? When this statement came out, the dozen or so second-tier evolved beings became furious. They couldn't believe that there was such an arrogant person in this world. "Brat, you mean to say you can do it with your eyes?" the man sneered. "You're right, I'll use my eyes," Yi Li said casually. Box novel. Calm. The man was startled, suddenly recalling the scene when his finger was severed earlier. The speed was so fast that he couldn't even see it clearly. Could it be that this person also used his eyes just now? That's impossible, absolutely impossible. The man shook his head vigorously, clearing his mind of these thoughts. "Brat, I'd like to see how you can make me see their corpses in 1 second, the man sneered. "Attack!" With a shout from the sharp-featured man, the dozen or so second-tier evolved beings rushed towards Yi Li. In Yi Li's eyes, these dozen or so second-tier evolved beings were pitifully weak, like specks of dust. Swish, swish, swish. Yi Li activated his heavenly spirit eyes, and more than 10 golden lights shot out from his pupils. These dozen or so second-tier evolved beings couldn't react in time. There were instantly horrifying bloody holes on their heads. The entire process was incredibly fast, not even taking a second. This. The sharp-featured man had been scared out of his wits. It seems that I've won this bet, Yili said calmly, looking at the man. The man quickly knelt down in fear, desperately begging Yili. Please spare me. I don't want to die. One really don't want to die. Yili smiled faintly. Then why were so many ordinary people imprisoned in that cave? Although he believed that these ordinary people were probably used for experiments, it was best to clarify the situation. The man turned pale with fright. He had suspected that Yili had come for this matter, and it seemed he was right. Those ordinary people are used for experiments by the fire-worshipping sect. The man stammered, his voice trembling. Fire-worshipping sect. Yili had never heard of this name, but it was likely another cult, similar to the White Lotus sect. Now that you've told me what you know, you can go on your way, Yili said to the man. The man was terrified. I won. But before he could finish his sentence, a horrifying bloody hole appeared on his forehead. The man fell to the ground, his eyes wide open, as if he couldn't believe he had died like this. Yili retracted his finger. He had never considered himself a good person, but he was certainly not a bad person either. Yili usually did things without needing any reason. Yili walked slowly towards the cave on the outer side of the noodle shop. The mountain was not very high, and there was a cave on its slope. He arrived at the entrance of the cave and walked inside. The cave was quite spacious, with a large cage inside that contained hundreds of human beings. These humans were all dirty, and their eyes were dull, as if they hadn't eaten for days. Upon seeing someone enter the cave, dozens of genetic warriors inside the cave immediately shouted, "Stop! Are you here to take these people?" a man asked. Yili smiled inwardly. It seemed that these people mistook him for a member of the fire-worshipping sect. Chapter 255. A kill in less than a second. Yili shook his head. I'm not here to take these people. The dozens of genetic warriors were puzzled. If he wasn't here to take the people, then what was he here for? What are you here for then? A man asked suspiciously. Just here to take a look, nothing more, Yili said casually. The man's expression turned cold. Brat, you're not trying to rescue these people, are you? Box novel. Calm. As soon as this was said, the dozens of genetic warriors became wary. But seeing that Yili was alone, they felt more at ease. I'm not. Yili shook his head. The dozens of genetic warriors were once again taken aback. Since he wasn't a member of the fire-worshipping sect, and he wasn't here to rescue anyone, then what was he here for? Was he just sightseeing? If he didn't have a purpose, how did he even find this place? Tell us, brat, what are you doing here? One genetic warrior demanded, giving Yili a cold stare. These dozen or so men were all second-tier evolved beings. While they might be formidable in smaller places, they were facing Yili now. I've already said it. I'm just here to take a look, Yili said nonchalantly. No one would believe that. You're going to tell us today, one way or another, or else. The man's words were left hanging, accompanied by a menacing glare, implying that Yili would suffer the consequences. Yili just smiled calmly. I've always been the one to threaten others. No one has ever dared to threaten me. The dozens of second-tier evolved beings were infuriated by his words. They had encountered arrogant people before, but someone this arrogant was unheard of. Since you want talk, don't blame us. Brothers, attack. With a shout from one of the second-tier evolved beings, the dozens of them charged at Yili. Yili shook his head inwardly. He had simply come to take a look. But why did people always doubt what he said? He slowly raised his finger, and a golden spiritual light wrapped around it. Then he pointed. The horrifying golden spiritual light flew towards the dozens of second-tier evolved beings. These second-tier evolved beings widened their eyes in shock, unable to react in time. There were horrifying bloody holes on their foreheads. How is this possible? In the cage, a middle-aged man exclaimed in shock. The hundreds of ordinary people in the cage might not be genetic warriors, but they were familiar with genetic warriors. How could so many genetic warriors be killed in an instant? They hadn't even seen it clearly, and these genetic warriors had bloody holes on their foreheads, falling dead to the ground. The hundreds of people in the cage were all ordinary citizens, and seeing this situation, they couldn't help but be terrified, their fear reaching its peak. Yili walked towards the iron cage, his face calm and serene. With each step he took, the hearts of the people sank deeper. It felt as if the gate of hell was opening up for them. What do you want?" a woman asked in horror. Yili didn't say a word. He had reached the edge of the iron cage, which was locked with a massive padlock. The terrified crowd watched Yili. In their eyes, Yili seemed to want to open the cage and kill them all. Based on how Yili had killed those dozens of genetic warriors, he was undoubtedly a ruthless murderer. Chapter 256. Captain Ling Fei. The crowd watched Yili in horror, silently hoping that he wouldn't be able to break the massive padlock. After all, it was a gigantic lock. Yili calmly looked at the iron lock in front of him, and then suddenly raised one finger. The onlookers didn't understand the purpose of Yili raising his finger. Then, without warning, Yili poked the lock with the finger. Boom! Box novel. Calm with a deafening sound, the massive iron lock instantly shattered into pieces. How was this possible? The hundreds of people inside the cage were shocked beyond belief. They had hoped Yili wouldn't open the lock, because it was so massive. However, they couldn't have imagined that Yili's finger could effortlessly destroy the lock. Such a big lock was actually pierced into pieces by Yili's finger. Yili opened the iron cage, and gazed at the people inside with indifference. "Are you all very afraid?" Yili asked slowly. The crowd was taken aback. How could they not be scared? Even the massive iron lock had been shattered by Yili's finger. If that finger were directed at them, they could easily imagine the consequences. "Never be afraid, because everything I do will make you terrified for 3 days and 3 nights, Yili continued. His words only heightened the fear of the crowd. Everything he did? Did that mean he was going to kill them next? They didn't want to die. They really didn't want to die. "Are you all hungry?" Yili smiled. Then he took out many boxes of food from his system space. Yili had stored countless boxes of food in his system space, just because he had the space available. When he first got the system, he had only had 2 slots in his system space. Now he had 10,000 slots. Suddenly seeing the food, the people were stunned for a moment. Then they voraciously began eating. They hadn't had a proper meal in days. Yili watched as they devoured the food. He realized that in this world, both the strong and the ordinary people, the rich and the poor, all needed to eat. Eating well made people feel secure. After finishing their meal, a middle-aged man looked at Yili gratefully. "Noble lord, thank you for saving us." The others quickly chimed in with their gratitude. Without Yili, they didn't know how they would end up. "Where are you all from?" Yili asked. "We are ordinary citizens from the Sky Eagle base, sir," the man replied. Yili nodded. The Sky Eagle organization, like a base city, had both genetic warriors and ordinary people. It was just a coincidence that he had encountered people of the Sky Eagle. It was quite interesting. A playful expression appeared on Yili's face. "Everyone, don't worry. We've come to rescue you." A sudden voice appeared in Yili's ears. Yili slowly turned around and saw a woman leading a dozen or so 4th-tier evolved beings rushing in. The woman was dressed casually and had a delicate face. She appeared to be in her early 20s, yet she was a 5th-tier evolved being. "It's Captain Ling Fei. Captain Ling Fei is here to save us." A man cheered. "Yeah, Captain Ling Fei is here, so we're safe now." "Boo-hoo, Mom, I thought I was a goner." The hundreds of people in the cage cheered and cried, looking extremely excited. "Don't worry. All of you are members of the Sky Eagle organization. No matter what danger you face, we will always come to your rescue," Ling Fei said to the crowd with determination. Chapter 257. State your purpose. After Ling Fei finished speaking, she became somewhat astonished. There were dozens of corpses on the ground. Who could have killed them? Moreover, there were all gruesome blood holes on their heads, appearing to be fatal blows. This was undoubtedly the work of a formidable individual. The people from the Sky Eagle base were currently outside the iron cage. They had undoubtedly been rescued by someone. Ling Fei suddenly looked at Yi Li. Although she couldn't discern Yi Li's level of cultivation, her intuition told her that Yi Li was not an ordinary person. She thought that Yi Li might be suppressing her own cultivation. It was no secret that the fire-worshipping sect captured ordinary people on the north of the wilderness northern region. Box novel. Could they have caught the wrong person? Are you from the Sky Eagle base? Ling Fei asked Yi Li. No. Yi Li shook his head. Then did you kill these people? Ling Fei inquired. Yi Li thought for a moment and then said, I merely moved my finger, and then they died. I didn't intend to kill them. Upon hearing this, Ling Fei understood. Dozens of corpses on the ground couldn't possibly be the work of the young man before her. Achieving such a single-strike kill was impossible for someone as young as him. Furthermore, the way he spoke was so arrogant, and he wasn't from the Sky Eagle base. So why was he hiding among these ordinary people? Ling Fei, as the captain of the Sky Eagle base's security team, felt it was necessary to clarify. What's your name? Ling Fei stared at Yi Li and asked. Yi Li. Yi Li spoke slowly. Ling Fei was momentarily stunned. The name sounded familiar, like she had heard it recently, but she couldn't remember where. If I guess correctly, you're a genetic warrior, right? Ling Fei looked at Yi Li with hostility. Hee. A hint of a smile appeared on Yi Li's face. What are you laughing at? Ling Fei was puzzled. She didn't understand why Yi Li was smiling at this moment. Look at the corpses on the ground. If Yi Li, weren't a genetic warrior, how do you think they would have died? Yi Li said calmly. Arrogant, absolutely arrogant. Although Ling Fei couldn't figure out where Yi Li's arrogance came from, she felt that he was indeed arrogant. She couldn't believe that these people were killed by Yi Li just because he was at most a second-tier evolved being. He was merely suppressing his real realm, so she couldn't discern it. For a moment, a hint of disgust welled up in Ling Fei's heart. She had always detested people who were arrogant and full of themselves, yet lacked the skills to back it up. You just said you're not from the Sky Eagle base. Why are you here? Ling Fei finally got to the point. Dozens of members of the Sky Eagle base's security team also looked at Yi Li, wanting to hear his response. Because there were dogs barking outside, Yi Li said slowly. When this statement was made, Ling Fei and the dozen or so security team members were left dumbfounded. They couldn't fathom the connection between dogs barking outside and his appearance here. What does dogs barking outside have anything to do with your presence here? Ling Fei asked Yi Li. Yi Li smiled faintly, and after a few seconds he spoke slowly. Then what does my presence here have anything to do with you? Ling Fei's expression instantly turned cold as she spoke in a cold tone. Are you playing with me? A hint of playful intent appeared on Yi Li's face. Are you fun to play with? Ling Fei and the dozen or so security team members were all infuriated. They stared intently at Yi Li. I'll give you one more chance to state your purpose, or you'll face the consequences, Ling Fei said coldly. Chapter 258. It was this gentleman who saved us, Captain Ling Fei. It was him who saved us. That's right, Captain Ling Fei. This gentleman here killed those people. I didn't even get a chance to see clearly, and they were all dead. Yes, I just felt this gentleman move his finger, and then they died. The Sky Eagle base's rescued civilians began speaking up for Yi Li. In their eyes, Yi Li not only saved them, but also provided them with food, making him their savior. Ling Fei heard these words, and her eyes widened in disbelief, as if everything was too incredible to be true. Box novel. Is what you're saying true? Ling Fei asked the crowd. It's true, Captain Ling Fei. This gentleman is truly an unparalleled powerhouse. He's incredibly powerful, a man quickly responded. Ling Fei was surprised as she looked at Yi Li. All the dozens of corpses on the ground were second-tier evolved beings, and they all had a blood hole in the same place on their foreheads, undoubtedly from a single fatal blow. She admitted that she couldn't achieve such a one-hit kill. Could this person be even stronger than her? Thinking about this, astonishment became more evident in Ling Fei's beautiful eyes. Although you saved the people from our Sky Eagle base, I still need to know your purpose. Is it simply to rescue them, or? Ling Fei's words were left incomplete. She wanted to see how Yili would respond. But she never dreamed that Yili would respond this way. Yili looked calmly at Ling Fei and said slowly, "Do I need to tell you what my purpose is?" Silence, a deadly silence. Ling Fei had never encountered someone like Yili before. Her intuition told her that Yili was not a bad person because he had saved these civilians. However, just to be sure, she needed to ask. After all, this place was quite secluded, and they had investigated for a long time before discovering it. Yet this young man seemed to know everything. She wouldn't believe there was no purpose behind it. "I'll give you one more chance. Now tell me or not." Ling Fei's delicate face grew colder, and she stared at Yili. "I'm very curious," Yili said calmly. "What are you curious about?" Ling Fei was puzzled. Yili supported his chin with a hand and said, "I'm curious why a mere ant like you dares to say such things to me." What? Not only Ling Fei and the members of the security team, but also the hundreds of ordinary civilians from the Sky Eagle base were all stunned. Captain Ling Fei is an ant? Keep in mind that Captain Ling Fei is a 5th-tier evolved being. How do you dare to call me an ant? Ling Fei said coldly, "Isn't that what you are?" Yili said indifferently. Ling Fei, the captain of the Sky Eagle base's security team, had never been called an ant by anyone before. Yet today, someone had referred to her as an ant, and she couldn't help but be angry. "You're seeking death. How dare he call our captain an ant?" "That's right. He's just a genetic warrior who dares not reveal his true realm. Yet he dares to speak so arrogantly in front of our captain? Captain, give this brat a lesson. Although he saved the civilians from our Sky Eagle base, it must have been for a purpose. Perhaps he's one of the followers of the fire-worshipping sect, performing this act to deceive us and infiltrate our base as a spy." The dozen or so members of the security team surrounding Ling Fei all started clamoring. They found Yili to be extremely arrogant and believed that if they didn't teach him a good lesson, he wouldn't understand the concept of respecting others. Chapter 259. I can defeat you without using my hands and feet. Ling Fei smirked coldly as she looked at Yili. "You've heard them. If you don't start telling the truth now, I'll have to give you a little lesson." Yili shook his head inwardly. An ant indeed, always unaware of their place. "You, give me a lesson?" Yili said calmly. "You, someone like you probably can't discern my true level, but let me tell you, I'm a 5th-tier evolved being." Box novel. Calm, Ling Fei angrily shouted. Yili's previous words had her burning with rage. In her view, once Yili heard that she was a 5th-tier evolved being, he would surely be frightened beyond belief. However, to her surprise, Yili's face remained as calm as water, as if he hadn't even heard her. Hee. Yili smiled indifferently. "What are you laughing at?" Ling Fei gritted her teeth. Yili let out a faint sigh. "I'm just marveling at when 5th-tier evolved beings started using their levels to intimidate others. In my eyes, even 5th-tier evolved beings are nothing more than ants. How could you understand how vast the heavens and earth truly are?" Yili continued. Hearing this, fire erupted in Ling Fei's eyes. "Very well. Since a 5th-tier evolved being is considered an ant in your eyes, I'll show you a thing or two." Ling Fei said coldly. The dozen or so 4th-tier security team members clenched their fists tightly. Yili was too arrogant, daring to call a 5th-tier evolved being an ant. Did that mean they were even lower than ants? Watching this scene unfold, the people from the Sky Eagle base were all taken aback. Although they had just narrowly escaped with their lives, they couldn't resist the temptation of witnessing such a good show. Not watching it would be a sin. "If you're ready, I'm going to make my move." Ling Fei stared at Yili. However, just as Ling Fei was about to strike, Yili suddenly stopped her. "Wait." Ling Fei halted her steps, a smug expression on her delicate face. She thought Yili must be scared now. "A lowly ant like you dares to fight me? If I use my hands and feet, it wouldn't be in line with my style. How about this? I won't use my hands and feet at all." Yili said calmly. "What?" When Yili said this, Ling Fei and the others were instantly shocked and horrified. Not use his hands and feet at all? Was there really such an arrogant person in this world? They couldn't comprehend it. No matter how hard they tried, they really couldn't. The one most shocked of all was Ling Fei herself. She had thought that Yili would be scared and reveal his true purpose after hearing that she was a fifth-tier evolved being. However, she could never have imagined that Yili would say such words. Are you really so arrogant as to think that you can defeat me without using your hands and feet? Ling Fei said angrily. Arrogant? Yili smiled faintly. Do you think it's arrogance for me to defeat you without using my hands and feet? Ridiculous. Yili, the illustrious Demon King, an 8th-tier evolved being, with the 3rd level of the Ancient Devil Tome, the SSS level combat skill Primordial Demon Slash, and carrying 2 unparalleled divine artifacts, the Dragon-Slaying Blade and the Heavenly Tower, had 5 8th-tier zombies under his command. Such a person defeating a 5th-tier, evolved being, without using his hands and feet, was considered arrogant? Very well. Ling Fei couldn't bear Yili's indifferent expression any longer. Since you've chosen not to use your hands and feet, I'll let you know today what absolute power means. Ling Fei said coldly. With that, she raised her palm, and a red aura appeared above it. A red aura represented an S-rank genetic warrior. Chapter 260. The Utter Horror of Everyone Ice Spike. Ling Fei shouted lightly as the red aura on her palm formed several ice spikes, launching towards Yili. The onlookers widened their eyes, afraid of missing out on the spectacle. They thought Yili would dodge, but they never expected him to stand still like a statue. Ling Fei was also surprised. She couldn't understand why Yili didn't dodge. Box novel. Calm could it be that her ice spike had scared him to the point of paralysis? But what everyone witnessed was beyond their wildest imagination. The terrifying ice spikes struck Yili's body heavily. Yet Yili didn't budge a step, and there was not the slightest trace of injury on him. It was as if these frightening ice spikes were nothing more than tickles to him. How is this possible? Ling Fei widened her eyes in disbelief. Her ice spike was a B-rank skill. Yet it couldn't cause any harm to Yili? The onlookers gasped in shock, staring at Yili with their mouths agape. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Hee. Yili suddenly chuckled coldly. Use all your abilities. Don't let me defeat you so easily. As an 8th-tier evolved being, Yili had an incredibly strong defense, making attacks from a 5th-tier evolved being like Ling Fei completely ineffective. Ling Fei, clenching her teeth, raised her palm again and shouted, Flame Palm! A burst of flames erupted from Ling Fei's palm. Yili remained unmoved in his original spot, his face still calm and serene. The onlookers widened their eyes even further, thinking that Yili couldn't possibly stand still this time. After all, this was fire. They had never guessed right from the beginning of this confrontation, but this time, they finally got it right. Yili didn't move at all. The flames struck Yili's body but instantly disappeared. It's impossible. This can't be happening. Ling Fei couldn't help but exclaim. Her ice spike was ineffective, which was one thing, but now, even her ranked flame palm had no effect on him. Why was even in level skill ineffective against him? Who was he? Who was he? Witnessing this, the onlookers were completely stunned. Even fire had no effect on him? Yili had just endured a combined assault of ice and fire from Ling Fei. And although she was considered nothing more than an ant in his eyes, her attack was quite impressive. It seems that you're done now. It's my turn. Yili said calmly to the astonished Ling Fei. The onlookers were surprised. Didn't Yili say he wouldn't use his hands and feet? Was he just joking earlier? Yili didn't pay any attention to the shocked expressions of the onlookers. He activated the Ancient Devil Tome, the 3rd level. In an instant, the entire cave was enveloped in a terrifying demonic aura. Just how horrifying was the demonic aura of the 3rd level of the Ancient Devil Tome? It could be imagined. Yili had held back. Otherwise, those ordinary people around him would have immediately exploded into pieces. Ling Fei's eyes widened. The aura was too frightening. Her heart was trembling, and her soul was shaking uncontrollably. The onlookers collapsed to the ground one after another, feeling as if they had descended into the depths of hell, enduring unspeakable torture that made them 100 times more painful. Yili looked at Ling Fei and calmly said, Do you still think I'm arrogant for defeating you without using my hands and feet? Chapter 261. Fire-worshipping sect. Ling Fei stared at Yi Li in horror, feeling her very soul trembling uncontrollably. Yi Li hadn't even made a move, yet his imposing aura was so overwhelming. Moreover, this aura was truly terrifying. She finally understood that she could never be Yi Li's match. Yi Li retracted the demonic aura from the third level of the ancient devil tome. His face still as calm as water. Box novel. Calm, do you want to continue? Yi Li asked calmly, looking at Ling Fei. Ling Fei was taken aback. She knew deep down that she could never be Yi Li's opponent. Even without using his hands and feet, he had already demonstrated his superiority. If he were to use his full power, she might not even be able to withstand a single blow. The members of the Sky Eagle Base's guard team and the onlookers were all terrified as they watched Yi Li. They had thought it was impossible for Yi Li to defeat Captain Ling Fei without using his hands and feet. But now they not only realized they were wrong, but also how thoroughly wrong they were. Oh, by the way, how is your third leader? Yi Li suddenly asked Ling Fei. That day, Tian Yi, the third leader of the Sky Eagle organization, fought against Bai Wawa and must have sustained considerable injuries. Yi Li needed to know if he was really seriously injured. Ling Fei was startled. The matter of the third leader of Sky Eagle, Tian Yi, being injured hadn't been widely known. But this person seemed to know about it. As the captain of Sky Eagle's guard team, Ling Fei naturally knew how third leader got injured. He was injured by the Demon King Yi. Ling Fei suddenly jolted as if she had been electrocuted. The Demon King's name was Yi Li, and she was quite certain that the Demon King was named Yi Li, and the person in front of her was also named Yi Li. Could it be? At this thought, Ling Fei couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The name Yi Li, she had heard of this woman before. The young lady of the Sky Eagle had mentioned this name to her, saying that the Demon King Yi Li had once saved her life. When I ask a question, I usually expect an answer, Yi Li said, looking at Ling Fei, who was still in shock. Ling Fei finally snapped out of her daze. She looked at Yi Li with a horrified expression and said, The third leader was seriously injured, unconscious. The Grand Leader had to seek help from the Medicine God Hall, but they couldn't do anything about it. Although she was almost certain that the young man in front of her was the Demon King Yi Li, she didn't dare to say it out loud, fearing that she might provoke him. Even an 8th-tier evolved being like the third leader couldn't withstand the assault of Bai Wawa of the Apocalypse Legion, led by the Demon King Yi Li. She was no match for him at all. Yi Li smiled inwardly. He had originally thought that dealing with the Sky Eagle organization would be troublesome, but now it seemed that he had worried needlessly. Let's go to the Sky Eagle base together, Yi Li said slowly. Ling Fei was taken aback. The Demon King Yi Li was going to the Sky Eagle base? She couldn't even fathom what his intentions might be, and she didn't dare to think too much about it. Yi Li looked at Ling Fei, who was hesitating, and smiled. Never refuse me. Don't even try, okay? Ling Fei was startled, and then a bitter smile appeared on her face. She realized that she had no choice but to comply with Yi Li's request. Even if the Demon King Yi Li went to the Sky Eagle base to prepare for something, the Sky Eagle base had nothing to fear. After all, their Grand Leader was a 9th-tier evolved being. All right, Ling Fei said to Yi Li. Soon after, Yi Li and the others headed towards the Sky Eagle base. However, not long after leaving the cave, they were blocked by over 100 genetic warriors. Most of them were 3rd-tier evolved beings, and there was even one 4th-tier evolved being among them. They were all dressed in black robes with 3 large characters embroidered in rust on their robes. Fire-worshipping sect. Chapter 262. A man of unparalleled handsomeness, over 100 genetic warriors from the fire-worshipping sect blocked the path of Yi Li and his group. A 4th-tier evolved being coldly looked at Ling Fei. Ling Fei, we've received word that you would come to rescue these people, but it's a pity that we've already laid an ambush. Ling Fei looked solemnly at the 4th-tier evolved being. Although she was a 5th-tier evolved being, there were several hundred genetic warriors on the other side, making it impossible for them to win. She stole a glance at Yi Li and noticed that his face remained calm, without any signs of disturbance. While the Demon King Yi Li was incredibly powerful, they had no connection to him whatsoever. Box novel. Calm. You followers of the fire-worshipping sect abducted the people from our Sky Eagle base, and we haven't settled that score with you yet. It seems you've walked right into our hands, Ling Fei said coldly. Upon hearing this, the fourth-tier evolver burst into laughter. Ling Fei, I don't think you've quite grasped the situation here. This isn't your Sky Eagle base. Right now you're just a dozen or so people. Do you think you can survive? The fourth-tier evolver wore a smug expression on his face. Ling Fei clenched her teeth and asked, What do you want from us? The fourth-tier evolved being sneered. Ling Fei, we don't want to do anything except kill all of you. The people from the Sky Eagle base were terrified. They had just narrowly escaped danger, and now they were faced with another threat. What do you think, Ling Fei? Shall we go over there and kill you? Or would you like to come over here and let us kill you? The fourth-tier evolved being taunted arrogantly. Ling Fei glanced at Yi Li once again, but found that his expression remained unchanged. She wondered if she should ask for his help. But why would the Demon King Yi Li bother to assist her? For a moment, Ling Fei felt a sense of powerlessness. Get out of the way, you ants. You're blocking my path. A carefree voice suddenly entered everyone's ears. All the fire-worshipping sect genetic warriors were stunned and quickly turned to look in the direction of the voice. What they saw left them in disbelief. They could never have imagined that there could be someone in the world so incredibly handsome. Yi Li's face was sharp and angular, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes that no one could forget. His eyes were as serene as the night and as profound as the ocean. Standing among the crowd, Yi Li appeared like a phoenix among chickens or Angelica among weeds. The leader of these followers of the fire-worshipping sect, a fourth-tier evolved being, rubbed his eyes as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. How could someone be this good-looking? But then he was stunned. He not only didn't see it wrong, but also noticed something else. Yi Li's eyes were full of killing intent, and he looked awe-inspiring. He is not just handsome, he's also domineering. Yi Li stood there like an unsheathed sword, reaching for the sky. The fourth-tier evolved being composed himself, and then frowned. When compared to the man in front of him, he felt utterly inferior. Do you know that being good-looking can sometimes lead to trouble? The fourth-tier evolved being glared at Yi Li and said coldly. Oh. A hint of playfulness appeared on Yi Li's face. The fourth-tier evolved being gritted his teeth. After a few seconds he added, Especially for a man as stunningly handsome as you. Yi Li smiled faintly. He understood that this fourth-tier evolved being was simply feeling inferior due to his own looks. He could empathize with such feelings of inferiority. After all, in this post-apocalyptic world, who wouldn't feel inferior in front of someone like him, Yi Li? Chapter 263. Turn them into zombies. Yi Li didn't want to pay any attention to whether this fourth-tier evolutionist felt inferior or not. He calmly said, Ants, move aside, or the consequences will be severe. What? Both the fourth-tier evolutionist and the hundreds of genetic warriors were shocked. They never expected Yi Li to dare to say such words to them. Yi Li had said something similar before, but they were too focused on his appearance at the time. Brat, don't you dare call us ants. The fourth-tier evolved being couldn't believe what he was hearing as he looked at Yi Li box novel. Yi Li smiled faintly. Aren't you ants? The fourth-tier evolved being and the genetic warriors of the fire-worshipping sect were infuriated by Yi Li's words. Brat, you're arrogant. The fourth-tier evolved being stared at Yi Li, completely bewildered by where Yi Li found the courage to say such things. I'll say it again, clear the path, or the consequences will be severe. I don't want to repeat myself for the third time, Yi Li said calmly. Ling Fei looked at Yi Li, and she secretly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the Demon King Yi Li was willing to take action, they would be safe. What if I don't move aside? The fourth-tier evolved being sneered. Yi Li smiled, and couldn't understand why these ants dared to say such things to him. Didn't they understand the simple principle that they shouldn't mess with the wrong person? Without saying more, Yili released his Apocalypse Legion from the system space. Roar! Ada by Wawa, Hongya, Yutong and Swordmaster Achi. Their appearances were all different, but they shared one thing in common. Their eyes were all golden. Turn them all into zombies, Yili said calmly. Following Yili's command, the Apocalypse Legion flew out like lightning. Among the hundreds of genetic warriors in the fire-worshipping sect, the strongest was only a 4th-tier evolved being, and there was no way they could withstand the attacks of 5 8th-tier zombies. In just a few seconds, all of the genetic warriors had been turned into zombies. Yili opened the synthesis grid in his mind and synthesized them into a 3rd-tier male zombie. There was no choice. When genetic warriors turned into zombies, their ranks would definitely decrease. He checked the other zombies in the system space. 1 5th-tier female zombie and 1 3rd-tier male zombie. That was about it. He turned around slowly and found that everyone had frozen in place like statues. Aren't you all shocked? Yili looked at them and spoke slowly. Upon hearing his words, they snapped back to reality, looking at Yili in shock. Never be surprised at me because everything I do will leave you astonished for 3 days and 3 nights. Yili continued. Ling Fei's face seemed to have frozen, and she stared at the Apocalypse Legion in shock. Is this the Demon King Yili's Apocalypse Legion? Ling Fei was filled with amazement. The members of the Sky Eagle Base's guard team were already scared out of wits. They had already guessed who Yili was, and they couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. They had been fortunate that the Demon King Yili hadn't killed them earlier, or they would have already gone to hell. What did you see? Yili looked at the people from the Sky Eagle Base and asked. They were taken aback and stammered. We saw. Before they could finish their sentence, Yili interrupted them. You didn't see anything. If anyone dares to talk about what happened today, you know the consequences, Yili said slowly. Chapter 264. Met Ziqiang again. Upon hearing Yili's words, everyone closed their mouths tightly, afraid to make a sound that might displease Yili. Yili looked at Ling Fei. Let's go. Ling Fei quickly responded and led the group towards the Sky Eagle base. As expected, just as Yili had anticipated, the Sky Eagle organization was indeed similar to a small bustling city. While it might not have been as large in scale as the Annan base city or the Huangjiang base city, its overall strength was much greater. Access to the Sky Eagle base was strictly regulated and required a pass. However, as the captain of the Sky Eagle base's security team, Ling Fei naturally didn't need one. Box novel. Calm. After entering the Sky Eagle base, Yili found that it was quite impressive, resembling a bustling town. Patrol teams with laser guns would occasionally roam the streets, and the people wore contented smiles on their faces. Mr. Yi, would you like to go? Ling Fei cautiously looked at Yili and asked. Take me to see Tianyi, Yili said slowly. Since he had come to the eastern part of the Wilderness North Zone, there was no need to provoke the Sky Eagle organization unnecessarily. Just let bygones be bygones. Yili wasn't afraid of the Sky Eagle organization, but there was no need to create enmity either. Ling Fei had no idea what Yili was thinking. She looked puzzled and couldn't understand why the Demon King Yili wanted to meet with the third leader now. Currently, the third leader was still in a coma, and even the doctors from the Medicine God Hall couldn't heal him. However, Ling Fei didn't dare to question Yili's reasons. She knew that beings like the Demon King Yili usually didn't need any reasons for their actions. Mr. Yi, please follow me. Shortly after, Ling Fei led Yili to a certain place. Before long, Yili followed Ling Fei and arrived outside a grand hall. On the top of the hall were 4 golden characters, Sky Eagle headquarters. Under the sunlight, these 4 golden characters appeared particularly dazzling. Mr. Yi, this is the Sky Eagle headquarters, and our third leader is currently recuperating inside, Ling Fei said to Yili. Yili nodded. Let's go in. Then Yili entered Sky Eagle headquarters. Shortly after entering, Yili saw someone he recognized. It was a girl around his age with long purple hair, sitting in a pavilion and appearing somewhat melancholic. This girl was none other than Ziqiang, the girl Yili had rescued in the abandoned city. Zichong held her chin in her hand, and when she saw Ling Fei, her face immediately brightened with excitement. Ling Fei, you're finally back. I've been so bored, Zichong pouted. However, Ling Fei was in no mood to exchange playful banter with Zichong today, especially with the presence of the great demon King Yi Li. Ling Fei feared that she might end up being killed by him. Zichong was taken aback and wondered why Ling Fei was ignoring her. Then a figure caught her eye. This figure seemed somewhat familiar. Ling Fei, who is he? Zichong asked curiously. He. Ling Fei didn't know how to answer. Zichong touched her head, wondering why her usually straightforward big sister Ling Fei was acting so hesitantly today. Since Ling Fei didn't respond, Zichong decided to ask the question herself. Hello, may I ask who you are? Zichong looked at Yi Li's figure and asked. As they say, all meetings in this world were reunions after a long separation. Yi Li turned around slowly. Chapter 265. Voluntarily walked into death. Zichong stared at Yi Li, her exquisite face seemingly frozen. After a moment, Zichong finally regained her senses. Aye. It feels like we've met somewhere before. Ziqiang's voice trembled uncontrollably. It's only been a year, and you've forgotten your savior? Yi Li replied casually. Ling Fei had previously mentioned to Zichong the story of how the demon King Yi Li had saved her in the ruined city. She stepped aside, not wanting to disturb their conversation. Box novel. Come, Mr. Demon King. Why have you come to the Sky Eagle base? Zichong said, her face turning slightly red. With her long waist-length purple hair, she looked incredibly adorable. Yi Li hadn't expected Zichong to have this kind of identity. It was quite interesting. I naturally have my reasons for coming, Yi Li replied slowly. Suddenly, Zichong remembered her third uncle Tian's situation. Her second uncle and third uncle had tried to subdue various major forces north of the Wilderness Northern region, but had been defeated by the demon King Yi Li's Apocalypse Legion. However, this was the territory of the Sky Eagle base. With her third uncle severely injured and unconscious, wouldn't Yi Li be voluntarily walking into his death? On one side was her third uncle, and on the other side was her savior. For a moment, Zichong felt at a loss for what to do. Mr. Demon King, you should leave. Right now my father and second uncle consider you an enemy. If you come here. Ziqiang's words were interrupted as a deep voice echoed in everyone's ears. Ling Fei, you're back. The speaker was a middle-aged man dressed in a black suit. His face bore an air of authority, and his complexion was a pale gold. Ling Fei quickly responded, Yes, second leader. We've successfully rescued several hundred people who were captured by the fire-worshipping sect. The middle-aged man was none other than the Sky Eagle organization's second leader, Jiangfeng, an eighth-tier evolved being. Jiangfeng nodded and suddenly turned his gaze towards Yi Li. Then he was scared out of wits. Yi Li. Jiangfeng was incredibly shocked and felt like he must be seeing things. How could Yi Li possibly be here? No matter how many times he blinked, Yi Li was still standing right in front of him, looking indifferent. Yi Li, it really is you. Your Apocalypse Legion's zombies severely injured my third brother, causing him to remain in a coma to this day. We didn't expect you to come here voluntarily. Jiangfeng stared at Yi Li coldly. Yi Li remained silent, his expression unchanged, as if he regarded Jiangfeng as insignificant. Surround him. This man is Yi Li the Demon King. Jiangfeng ordered, and instantly, hundreds of genetic warriors rushed forward. They held specially designed laser guns, which were much more powerful than those of genetic warriors at the same level. Go inform my eldest brother and the elders. Jiangfeng instructed a fifth-tier evolved being. Yes, second leader. The fifth-tier evolved being hurriedly ran inside to report. Ling Fei naturally knew that this would be the outcome. Until now, she still didn't understand why Yi Li had come to the Sky Eagle base. Zichong watched Yi Li surrounded and her little face filled with worry. But what could she do? After all, it was the Iron Feet zombie, by Wawa, from the Apocalypse Legion who had injured her third uncle. Soon the Sky Eagle organization's grand leader, accompanied by the 10 elders, emerged from the main hall. Chapter 266. Don't you want Tiani to survive? The grand leader of the Sky Eagle organization was named Zishan, a 9th-tier evolved being. The 10 elders following him were all 7th-tier evolved beings. Their power far surpassed that of Annan Base City and Huangjiang Base City. Big brother, this is Yi Li. Jiang Feng pointed at Yi Li. Upon hearing this, Zishan's expression grew cold. He scrutinized Yi Li and asked, "Are you Demon King Yi Li?" Box novel. Calm, that's right. Yi Li nodded, his face as calm as ever. Zishan looked at Yi Li's indifferent expression and sneered. Demon King Yi Li, I must commend your courage. You're facing so many of us, yet your face remains unmoved. Yi Li, however, merely smiled faintly. I heard that your third leader suffered severe injuries and is now in a coma. I came here just to take a look. Is it necessary to make such a fuss? These words angered everyone present. The reason Tian-Yi suffered such injuries and fell into a coma was that he was injured by a member of your Apocalypse Legion, the iron-footed zombie. And now you Yi Li dare to say such things? Arrogant fool, Zishan angrily shouted. Zishan was a 9th-tier evolved being, while Yi Li was an 8th-tier evolved being. There was a huge gap between the two. However, Yi Li didn't come to the Sky Eagle base to engage in a full-blown battle. If negotiations failed, he could simply run away. The gap between an 8th tier and a 9th tier evolved being was too vast. The differences in power between each tier of evolved beings were unimaginable. But Yi Li was confident that he could escape if needed, thanks to his S-tier ability, Swift Steps. Yi Li, don't you know that you're about to die? Zishan coldly stared at Yi Li. He couldn't understand why Yi Li remained so calm. Dad, Ziqiang suddenly called out to Zishan. Before Zishan could respond, Ziqiang continued. Didn't you ask me how I escaped from the abandoned city? Actually, it was Senior Demon King who saved me. Can't you? Ziqiang didn't finish her sentence, but her meaning was clear. Ziqiang had only told Ling Fei about Yi Li saving her in the abandoned city. Although Bai Wawa, the iron-footed zombie from Yi Li's Apocalypse Legion, had severely injured her third uncle, she didn't want anything to happen to Yi Li. Zishan was taken aback by her words. He would never have imagined that Yi Li was the one who had saved his daughter. Big brother, even if Yi Li saved little Qiong, what does that represent? Didn't you hear what he said earlier? It's obvious that he came here to mock our Eagle organization. Jiang Feng argued. Yi Li, I admit that I can't defeat you, but this is the Sky Eagle base. Today, you have nowhere to escape. Zishan declared. I heard that you are neither human nor a member of the dark race. I've encountered many humans and members of the dark race, but I've never seen anything like you, who is neither human nor dark race member. Jiang Feng said angrily, letting out his pent-up frustration. Yi Li, on the other hand, smiled faintly. He ignored Jiang Feng and turned to look at Zishan. I believe you don't want Tian-Yi to die, right? Yi Li said slowly. Zishan was taken aback and hurriedly asked, Yi Li, what do you mean by that? Yi Li smiled faintly. It's nothing special, just that aside from me, no one else can save him. After hearing this, everyone present was petrified. Chapter 267. The Medicine God Hall and Miracle Physician Qi Zishan continued to stare at Yi Li, unable to understand why Yi Li dared to speak in such a manner. Yi Li, what exactly do you mean? Zishan asked. Zishan actually admired Yi Li's audacity a bit. To remain calm in the face of such overwhelming opposition took incredible courage. I've already said it. Aside from me, Yi Li, no one can save Tian-Yi. Yi Li calmly replied. The Sky Eagle organization's second leader sneered. Yi Li, do you think you're a god? Old 3 can be saved by the Medicine God Hall's miracle physicians. What are you compared to them? Box novel. Calm. Yi Li smiled faintly. Can the quacks from the Medicine God Hall compare to me? Arrogant, absolutely arrogant. In the eyes of the onlookers, Yi Li's arrogance knew no bounds. Unfortunately, Yi Li didn't see it that way. He had seen doctors from the Medicine God Hall before, in Annan Base City and Huangjiang Base City. When Jiang Feng heard Yi Li's words, he was furious and was about to say some harsh words to Yi Li. However, a voice suddenly reached everyone's ears. Who dares to say that the physicians of our medicine god hall are quacks? Everyone quickly turned their heads and saw an elderly man in his 60s slowly approaching. Although the old man was only a third-tier evolved being, he had a graceful and dignified appearance. The people of the medicine god hall dedicated their lives to the study of medicine, so their cultivation realm was not high. However, the medicine god hall was an absolute force to be reckoned with, because they had good relations with all major powers. Dr. Qi, Zishan called out to the elderly man. Dr. Qi, he said that the doctors of your medicine god hall are all quacks, Jiang Feng said, fearing that the elderly man didn't know. Dr. Qi looked at Yi Li. After a few seconds he smiled coldly and asked, "Did you say that all of us in the medicine god hall are quacks?" Everyone turned their attention to Yi Li, eager to hear how he would respond. Yi Li's lips curled up slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "Isn't that the case?" Yi Li calmly replied. With this statement, the atmosphere instantly grew quiet. No one could have imagined that Yi Li would say such a thing when faced with the miracle physicians of the medicine god hall. "You brat, you're asking for death." Dr. Qi gritted his teeth. However, Yi Li merely smiled faintly. "Do you, a lowly third-tier evolved being, think you can kill me?" Nowadays, if Yi Li wanted to kill a third-tier evolved being, it was 100 times easier than crushing an ant. Demon King Yi Li, how dare you speak to Dr. Qi in such a manner? Do you really think there's no one left in our Sky Eagle organization? Jiang Feng coldly retorted. He still vividly remembered the terror he felt when Yi Li used his heavenly spirit eyes outside the flame base. The enmity and hatred between him and Yi Li ran deep. "I truly admire you. A young man like you dares to claim that all of us in the medicine god hall are quacks. I really want to know on what basis you're saying this." Dr. Qi's old face suddenly displayed a playful look. He thought that Yi Li was merely talking big and had no real substance to his claims. Unfortunately, Dr. Qi couldn't have anticipated how Yi Li would respond to his question. "You can't even cure Tiani, aren't you a quack?" Yi Li said casually. Dr. Qi's expression turned cold. Do you know how severe Tiani's injuries are?" Chapter 268. Are Tiani's injuries severe? Dr. Qi looked at Yi Li with disdain, seeing him as someone who didn't understand anything and just liked to boast. "Are Tiani's injuries severe?" Yi Li asked Dr. Qi calmly. Dr. Qi snorted. "If third leader's injuries weren't serious, would I be helpless? That's just a problem with your medical skills. If it were me, Yi Li, I could heal Tiani in an instant." Yi Li replied calmly. Box novel. Calm with these words, everyone became furious. Even the miracle physicians of the medicine god hall were powerless. So what gave Yi Li the audacity to make such claims? Moreover, Yi Li was the one responsible for Tian's injuries in the first place. How dare he be so shameless? When Dr. Qi heard Yi Li's words, he felt insulted like never before. "Yi Li, you." Dr. Qi was so angry that he couldn't even complete a sentence. With a calm expression on his face, Yi Li said, "Today, I am in a good mood, so I'll let you witness my medical skills." As he spoke, Yi Li prepared to move forward. However, Jiang Feng blocked Yi Li's path and looked at him coldly. "Yi Li, don't pretend to be a good person. How did my third brother get injured?" "Dad, I think we should let Senior Demon King give it a try," Ziqiang whispered as she tugged at Zishan's sleeve. Zishan contemplated for a few seconds. He thought that maybe Yi Li had come not to save his third brother, but to kill him. However, if that was the case, wasn't Yi Li committing suicide? Since Dr. Qi was helpless anyway, he might as well take a chance. With him by the side, there was no way Yi Li could harm his third brother. "Yi Li, can you really save my third brother?" Zishan asked Yi Li with a probing look. Yi Li smiled calmly and slowly replied, "Not only can I save him, I can make him recover instantly." Although Zishan thought Yi Li was extremely arrogant, the calmness and confidence on Yi Li's face surprised him. "Very well. I'll trust you this time," Zishan said. "Mr. Z, how can you?" Dr. Qi was astonished. He never imagined that Zishan would agree to let Yi Li try. "Dr. Qi, right now my third brother's life is in imminent danger, so..." Zishan's words were left unfinished, but the meaning was clear. Mr. Z, you're showing disrespect to our medicine god hall by letting a brat treat third leader's injuries. Zishan was annoyed. He thought, if your medicine god hall can heal my third brother's injuries, why would I let Yili do it? Old man, do you always talk so much nonsense? Yili suddenly asked. When Dr. Chi heard this, he was infuriated beyond measure, and his old face was filled with anger. Fine, fine. Let me see your medical skills. Dr. Chi said coldly. Yili ignored Dr. Chi and looked at Zishan. Lead the way. Seeing Yili giving orders to the leader, everyone's anger intensified. Zishan frowned, but after looking at Yili for a few seconds, he led Yili to Tianyi's room. Dr. Chi followed with a gloomy expression. He wanted to see if Yili really had the ability to back up his words. A few minutes later, Yili arrived at Tianyi's room. Tianyi was currently unconscious, with a multitude of medical equipment on either side of his hospital bed. Chapter 269. It was Senior Demon King who saved you. Dr. Chi chuckled coldly. Yili, show us your astonishing medical skills. He wanted to see if Yili's skills matched his strong words. Yili smiled and said, I originally thought that the quacks of the medicine god hall had some extraordinary abilities. It turns out you rely on these ordinary medical instruments. Ha ha ha. Dr. Chi burst into laughter, as if he had never heard anything so amusing. Box novel. Come. Yili. Oh Yili, I thought you had some skills. Don't you know that medical instruments are necessary for treating injuries and illnesses? There was a mocking expression on Dr. Chi's old face, as if he looked down on Yili even more. Yili shook his head slowly. Indeed, you truly are quacks. If it were me, I wouldn't need medical instruments to save someone. What? What did you say? Dr. Chi was dumbfounded. Treating people without medical instruments? How is that possible? Were you going to use your head? Yili smiled to himself. He knew that doctors like Dr. Chi wouldn't understand his medical skills. Yili, please save my third brother quickly, Zishan said in a deep voice. Zishan wanted to see if Yili was planning to harm or save his third brother. He was also puzzled about how one could save someone without using medical instruments. When Yili heard this, he looked at Tianyi, who was lying unconscious on the bed. He slowly raised his palm, and a gentle golden spiritual light enveloped it. Immediately, the golden spiritual light slowly moved toward Tianyi. An SSS-level healing technique was impossible to use to bring someone back from the dead, but it was quite simple to heal a severely injured person. After a few seconds, a miracle occurred. Tianyi slowly opened his eyes. Third brother. Zishan and Jiang Feng called out to Tianyi when they saw him open his eyes. I didn't die. Tianyi touched his head, as if it were utterly unbelievable. That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. Dr. Chi exclaimed. The severe injuries that had left him helpless had been casually healed? The 10 elders of the Sky Eagle organization in the room were also stunned. It was just too unbelievable. Not only had third leader's injuries been healed, but he also seemed full of energy and vitality. I told you I could treat injuries without medical instruments. Why didn't you believe that? Yili looked at Dr. Chi casually. At this point, Dr. Chi had no idea how to respond. He felt deeply ashamed and wished he could find a hole to hide in. But he was also shocked. He couldn't understand how such a miraculous medical skill could exist in this world. It was simply incredible. Tianyi moved his body a bit and realized he was completely fine. He then looked around at the people in the room. But what he saw shocked him to the core. Demon King Yili. Tianyi jumped out of the hospital bed and shouted at Yili. He would rather believe that the sky was falling than believe that Yili would appear here. Set aside your prejudices towards your savior, Yili said calmly. Tianyi was puzzled when he heard this. Third uncle, it was Senior Demon King who saved you, Ziqiong said sweetly with a smile. What? Tianyi's eyes widened in shock. He couldn't have imagined that it was Yili who had saved him. Chapter 270. There's a high-level female zombie on the outskirts. Tian, he stared at Yili in disbelief. He had fought a fierce battle against the iron-footed zombie by Wawa outside the Blaze Fire base, and had been seriously injured. Wasn't the iron-footed zombie part of the Apocalypse Legion? How could it be Yili who saved him? The second leader of the Sky Eagle organization was dumbfounded. His previous furious shouts at Yili now left him red-faced. He had never expected Yili to actually heal third leader so quickly. Box novel. Calm Yili, now that you've healed third brother, let's consider our past grievances settled. What do you think? Zishan looked at Yili and suggested. Just as Zishan was watching intently, Yili used such a divine technique that he had to take Yili seriously. Yili replied, all right. He had come to the Sky Eagle base to resolve this matter in the first place. Otherwise, the Flame organization would have been annihilated by the Sky Eagle organization. Now that the issue had been resolved, Yili was looking forward to exploring the Falling Rock Mountain range with the super treasure map. As he was about to leave, Ziqiong stopped him. Senior Demon King, where are you going? Falling Rock Mountain range. Ziqiong was puzzled. The Falling Rock Mountain range wasn't far from the Sky Eagle base, but it was a forbidden zone for life. She couldn't understand why Yili would want to go there. Senior Demon King, can I go with you? Ziqiong asked cautiously, her eyes fixed on Yili. Ever since Yili had saved her in the ruined city, his presence had haunted her. She didn't understand why she felt this way. She had thought that she would never see Yili again in her lifetime. But now that she had, she didn't want to part with him so soon. Yili hadn't expected Ziqiong to make such a request, but he looked into her eyes with his usual calm gaze. He had seen that look in the eyes of many others before. Xiao Hui, Yun Man, Qian Ruxue, Lu Qingxue, Lu Qian Luoyu. All of them had looked at him with similar eyes. Without a doubt, Ziqiong had fallen for him. He wasn't surprised by this at all. After all, which girl wouldn't be attracted to him when she saw him? All right, Yili said. He had never been a good person or a bad person, but he had a good heart. Since Ziqiong had made such a request, there was no harm in agreeing to it. Thank you, Senior Demon King, Ziqiong said with joy. As Yili was about to leave, Zishan stopped him. Demon King, are you planning to go to the Falling Rock Mountain range? Zishan asked. Yili nodded. Is there something wrong with that? Recently, there's a high-level female zombie on the outskirts of the Falling Rock Mountain range. None of the adventurers who went there have returned, Zishan said. A high-level female zombie? Yili smiled inwardly. Could this be the opportunity he was waiting for? The 5 zombies of the Apocalypse Legion were all 8th-tier zombies now. It was time to cultivate a new one. Demon King, your strength is something I'm not worried about, but if Chionger goes with you... Zishan didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was clear. He was worried about Ziqiong going with Yili. Dad, just let me go with Demon King. He's so powerful. Why would he be afraid of a high-level female zombie? Ziqiong pleaded with her father. Zishan looked into Ziqiong's imploring eyes for a few seconds before shaking his head helplessly. All right. Chapter 271. The young master of the fire-worshipping sect, seeing that Zishan had agreed, Ziqiong was excited. Then, she and Yili headed for the Falling Rock Mountain range. The Falling Rock Mountain range wasn't far from the Sky Eagle base, and before long, the two of them reached its outskirts. Yili had been here with Luoyu before, where they had encountered a giant centipede. Box novel. Calm Senior Demon King. Are you coming to the Falling Rock Mountain range for that high-level female zombie? Ziqiong asked curiously. Yili didn't answer, instead using his heavenly spirit eyes to scan their surroundings. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, a familiar sound that Yili recognized well resounded. Hundreds of zombies rushed towards them recklessly. Yili raised his finger, and the golden spiritual light on his fingertip swept out like a machine gun, shooting at the approaching zombies. Swish! 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 These hundreds of zombies couldn't get close to Yili. Their legs were all pierced by bullet-like holes, rendering them powerless. 2 level 1 zombies could be synthesized into a level 2 zombie. 2 level 2 zombies could be synthesized into 1 level 3 zombie. All of these zombies were level 3. So Yili combined them into 1 level 9 male zombie and 1 level 9 female zombie. Yili looked bored. A level 9 zombie was too weak. But Ziqiang didn't look bored at all. On the contrary, she was extremely shocked. These zombies had transformed into 2 zombies. Ziqiang was only a tier 3 evolved being. She wasn't afraid of these low-level zombies, but this was unbelievable. The scene where Yili raised a single finger and instantly caused hundreds of zombies to fall to the ground left her astonished, despite her already being terrified of Yili. However, she was still shocked by this sight. But why did these zombies transform into a male zombie and a female zombie? Moreover, they seemed to become much stronger. Suddenly, Ziqiang remembered Yili's title. The Demon King. Yili. He was neither a human nor a member of the dark race, but a demon. Ziqiang thought that maybe this was the ability of a demon. Ha ha ha. This is truly like finding something unexpectedly without any effort. A sudden sneer reached Yili's ears. Yili turned around slowly and found a young man about his age, a 4th-tier evolved being, standing before him. The young man was dressed in a black robe with 3 large characters on it. Fire-worshipping sect. Behind him were dozens of genetic warriors, all 3rd-tier evolved beings. Zhaoyang. Ziqiang said in shock. Zhaoyang gave a cold smile. I didn't expect to encounter the daughter of the Sky Eagle organization's leader here. Should I consider myself lucky or very lucky? Zhaoyang was the young master of the fire-worshipping sect, a powerful super-faction located east of the Wilderness North region. They specialized in researching drugs to enhance human genetic potential and make a fortune from it. These drugs forcibly improved the genes of the human body and were extremely destructive. As long as one used them, their lifespan would plummet by decades. In human-based cities, these drugs were absolutely forbidden. However, if some ordinary people wanted to become genetic warriors, they had to use them, even if their lifespan would plummet. Recently, the fire-worshipping sect had been researching a new drug, which was why they were aggressively capturing ordinary people in the Wilderness North region. Miss Ziqiang, will you come with me willingly, or do I need to take action myself? Zhaoyang looked at Ziqiang and said. As long as he used Ziqiang as a hostage, the fire-worshipping sect could gain numerous benefits from the Sky Eagle organization, especially since Zishan cherished his daughter dearly. Want to gift the story? Try 1. Comment 0 comment O vote 2 left KJ send gift chapter 272. Insignificant ant. Come and let me kill you. Ziqiang became a little anxious when she heard Zhao Yang's words. She quickly glanced at Yili, only to find him remain calm and composed. She thought she was being useless. With Senior Demon King by her side, why should she fear someone as insignificant as Zhao Yang? Zhao Yang, I advise you to leave quickly, or you will be in mortal danger, Ziqiang said to Zhao Yang. Zhao Yang was momentarily stunned, not understanding why Ziqiang would say such a thing. Then he realized. Ziqiang wasn't alone. There was a young man with her. This young man. Zhao Yang looked at Yi Li and felt an overwhelming sense of jealousy. He was considered quite handsome himself, but when compared to the young man before him, it was like night and day. A cold, dark look appeared on Zhao Yang's face as he thought to himself, what's the use of being exceptionally handsome? In the end, he will just be a corpse. I think Ziqiang has the confidence to say this because of you, isn't that right? Zhao Yang stared at Yili. Perhaps. Yili replied calmly. Zhao Yang stared intently at Yili's calm face and couldn't understand how he could remain so composed. Didn't he know that he was about to die? I don't like your face, Zhao Yang said coldly, gazing at Yili. Do you know what happens to people I don't like? They die, Yili replied calmly. Since you know you're going to die, why are you so calm? Zhao Yang couldn't fathom why Yili could maintain such composure. Yili smiled faintly. Is this how insignificant beings like you usually speak? Chapter 272. Insignificant ant. Come and let me kill you. Ziqiang became a little anxious when she heard Zhao Yang's words. She quickly glanced at Yi Li, only to find him remain calm and composed. She thought she was being useless. With Senior Demon King by her side, why should she fear someone as insignificant as Zhao Yang? Zhao Yang, I advise you to leave quickly, or you will be in mortal danger, Ziqiang said to Zhao Yang. Zhao Yang was momentarily stunned, not understanding why Ziqiang would say such a thing. Then he realized. Box novel. Calm Ziqiang wasn't alone. There was a young man with her. This young man. Zhao Yang looked at Yi Li and felt an overwhelming sense of jealousy. He was considered quite handsome himself, but when compared to the young man before him, it was like night and day. A cold, dark look appeared on Zhao Yang's face as he thought to himself, what's the use of being exceptionally handsome? In the end he will just be a corpse. I think Ziqiang has the confidence to say this because of you, isn't that right? Zhao Yang stared at Yi Li. Perhaps, Yi Li replied calmly. Zhao Yang stared intently at Yi Li's calm face, and couldn't understand how he could remain so composed. Didn't he know that he was about to die? I don't like your face, Zhao Yang said coldly, gazing at Yi Li. Do you know what happens to people I don't like? They die, Yi Li replied calmly. Since you know you're going to die, why are you so calm? Zhao Yang couldn't fathom why Yi Li could maintain such composure. Yi Li smiled faintly. Is this how insignificant beings like you usually speak? What? Both Zhao Yang and the dozen or so genetic warriors from the fire-worshipping sect were stunned. He actually called our young master insignificant. With that comment, Zhao Yang's somewhat handsome face turned ice-cold. He never expected Yi Li to be so arrogant, not only in demeanor but also in words. It's the first time in my life that someone has called me insignificant from birth to now. You have quite the audacity, and I must say, I'm impressed. Insignificant ant, come and let me kill you. Yi Li looked at Zhao Yang and spoke calmly. His face remained as serene as ever, as if being killed by him was a great honor for Zhao Yang. Since you're so eager to die, I'll grant your wish. Kill him. Zhao Yang was so infuriated that he felt an itching sensation in his teeth. He had never encountered someone so arrogant before. With his command, more than a dozen third-tier evolved beings from the fire-worshipping sect charged at Yi Li. Zhao Yang sneered, believing that Yi Li was already dead meat. Then he could capture Ziqiang and use her as leverage against the Sky Eagle organization. Yi Li watched as more than a dozen third-tier evolved beings rushed toward him, wondering why there were so many people in this world who weren't afraid of death. Was life truly that undesirable? He activated his heavenly spirit eyes, and dozens of golden lights shot out from his eyes in an instant. The dozen or so third-tier evolved beings were horrified when they saw these terrifying golden lights. They panicked and tried to dodge, but it was too late. Ah! After a shrill scream, all of the third-tier evolved beings lay on the ground dead. How is this possible? Zhao Yang stared in horror at the bodies of more than a dozen fire-worshipping sect genetic warriors on the ground. Ziqiang was also shocked. Earlier, Yi Li had knocked down over 100 zombies with a single flick of his finger, which had amazed her. Now, he had instantly killed more than a dozen third-tier evolved beings with his eyes alone. She was also a third-tier evolved being, so did this mean that she could be killed with just a glance in the eyes of Senior Demon Lord? Chapter 273. Discovered the high-level female zombie. Zhao Yang was utterly terrified, his body trembling, his courage shattered. He never could have imagined that over a dozen third-tier evolved beings would be killed with just a glance. He now felt as if all the strength had been drained from his body, leaving him limp on the ground. You. Zhao Yang looked at Yi Li in horror. Yi Li gazed at Zhao Yang with indifference. Now that I, Yi Li, intend to kill you, understood? As these words left Yi Li's lips, Zhao Yang felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His legs trembled, and he involuntarily urinated. No, you can't kill me. I am the young master of the fire-worshipping sect. We are the supreme power in the wilderness northern region. If you kill me, you will definitely die too. Zhao Yang tried to use the fire-worshipping sect to threaten Yi Li, but his plan was flawed. In this world there is no one the Demon King Yi Li dare not kill. Yi Li said with a faint smile. The Demon King. Yi Li? Zhao Yang had naturally heard of the demon king Yi Li, and now he finally realized the kind of existence he had provoked. Go to hell. With that, a blood-curdling hole appeared on Zhao Yang's forehead before he could even beg for mercy. Ziqiang stared in horror at Yi Li. Killing someone seemed insignificant to him. This person was truly terrifying. Senior Demon King, Zhao Yang is the young master of the fire-worshipping sect. You killed him. There may be trouble for you. Ziqiang said to Yi Li. Yi Li chuckled. Trouble? A small fire-worshipping sect thinks it can be trouble for me? He wasn't concerned about the fire-worshipping sect discovering that he had killed Zhao Yang, because he was unafraid. Quite the opposite. He was looking forward to it. Powers like the fire-worshipping sect usually preserved the life flames of their important figures. Once the life flame were extinguished, it meant the person was dead. Yi Li had come to the Falling Stone Mountains, not to kill some insignificant pests, but to find the high-level female zombie that was still missing. He used his heavenly spirit eyes once more to scan the surroundings, but found no trace of the high-level female zombie. Then he continued to move forward. This high-level female zombie on the outskirts would be his newly cultivated zombie. After he walked for over 10 minutes, another wave of zombies approached him. There were hundreds of these zombies, all of them third-level zombies. Seeing Yi Li and Ziqiang, these zombies rushed towards them with the hunger of starving people who hadn't eaten for 10 days. Yi Li used the one yang finger to render these zombies powerless. He then opened the synthesis grid in his mind and combined these zombies into a level 9 male zombie, a level 10 male zombie, a level 9 female zombie, and a level 10 female zombie. He already had a level 9 male zombie and a level 9 female zombie. By synthesizing them into level 10, he could continue to synthesize the level 10 male zombie and the level 10 female zombie. This resulted in a tier 1 male zombie and a tier 1 female zombie. Yi Li's face remained emotionless. This had no significance. He needed to find the high-level female zombie. He used his heavenly spirit eyes to scan the area once again, and this time, he finally spotted the high-level female zombie. He quickly headed in that direction, with Ziqiang following closely behind. After a short while, Yi Li saw the high-level female zombie. This female zombie was a purple-eyed zombie. This meant that she was a tier 6 zombie. Yi Li's face lit up with excitement. He had never encountered such a high-level zombie before. However, this high-level female zombie was currently besieged by a group of high-level dark race members, and a fierce battle was about to erupt. Chapter 274. Bone Maiden. Dozens of Tier 5 dark race members surrounded the Tier 6 female zombie. These dark race members were all heavy sword-wielding undead, and they stared coldly at the Tier 6 female zombie, as if they had just been through a great battle. Bone Maiden, you dare to run out from the inner circle. Have you stopped listening to your master? One of the heavy sword-wielding undead stared at the Tier 6 zombie. The Tier 6 female zombie smiled coldly. I have already broken free from his control. From now on, I am my own master. Yi Li and Ziqiang watched from the sidelines. A Tier 6 zombie speaking human language was not surprising to them. Bone Maiden, since you insist on not going back with us, then we'll have to take action. As the words fell, more than 30 Tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead prepared to attack. Although it was a Tier 6 female zombie, there was no chance of victory against over 30 Tier 5 dark race members. Bone Maiden was forced back step by step by these 30-plus Tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead, and she was becoming increasingly overwhelmed. Yi Li smiled. If he didn't intervene now, this Tier 6 female zombie might not survive. Wait here, Yi Li said to Ziqiang. Before Ziqiang could respond, Yi Li activated his swift steps and disappeared from the spot. Bone Maiden was already cornered by more than 30 Tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead. Bone Maiden, goodbye, one of the Tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead said with a cold smile. As the words fell, more than 30 Tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead prepared to continue their siege on Bone Maiden. Just as the situation was about to become dire, Yi Li appeared next to Bone Maiden. Bone Maiden was taken aback. She never could have dreamed that a young man would suddenly appear in front of her at this moment. The 30+ tier, 5 heavy sword-wielding undead, also came to an abrupt halt when they saw this. Human. One of the tier, 5 heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yili. The 30+ tier, 5 heavy sword-wielding undead were all astonished. They couldn't understand how this human had appeared. You can leave now. Yili looked at the over 30 tier, 5 heavy sword-wielding undead, and said indifferently. One of the tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yili and asked, Human, do you want to save Bone Maiden? Yili smiled faintly. Could these dark race members not understand his words? Till say it again, you can leave now. Don't make me say it a third time, Yili said slowly. Upon hearing this, the 30+ tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead were all startled. A human wanted to save a zombie? They had never seen or heard of such a scenario before. Hee. One of the tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead suddenly laughed coldly. Human, you could have lived quite well. You really shouldn't have appeared here. Don't you know you're about to die? Yili shook his head slightly. He didn't want to waste words with these tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead. He took out the dragon-slaying blade from his system space, and instantly, a dragon's roar echoed, followed by the sound of sharp blades. The 30+ tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead were taken aback. They stared at the gleaming blade in Yili's hand, but before they could get a good look, Yili had already raised the dragon-slaying knife. Flame blade technique. As soon as the words were spoken, the blade was released. Instantly, countless blades of fire rushed towards the 30+ tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead. There was no chance for the undead to resist such a devastating attack. In their final moments, their eyes widened, and their pupils were filled with blades of fire. The blades of fire devoured all of the 30+ tier 5 heavy sword-wielding undead. Chapter 275. The Bone Maiden's past Ziqiong watched this scene from the side, her exquisite little face full of shock. She remembered what happened in the abandoned city, and she naturally knew that the knife in Yili's hand was the dragon-slaying blade. Besides, she also knew that Senior Demon King not only had the dragon-slaying blade, but also had the Heavenly Tower, which was also one of the 10 great divine weapons. At this time, more than 35th tier heavy sword-wielding undeads had been burnt to ashes, and Yili's handsome face looked quite bored. It was as if instantly killing more than 35th tier heavy sword-wielding undead was a trivial matter for him. Yili put the dragon-slaying blade back into the system space, and slowly turned around to look at the 6th tier female zombie in front of him. As long as a zombie reached the 6th tier, the signs of decomposition on its face would almost disappear. This 6th tier female zombie was undoubtedly very beautiful, even stunning, but at the moment, she was covered in dirt, and her clothes were tattered. They all called you Bone Maiden just now. Is that your name? Yili asked casually. The Bone Maiden's face was very cold, and there was no emotion in her purple eyes. She looked at Yili without any fear and said, Cut the crap. Kill me. Yili was slightly stunned. He didn't expect this 6th tier female zombie to have such a bad temper. He didn't say that he wanted to kill her. Are you willing to follow me? Yili looked at the Bone Maiden. The Bone Maiden was a little stunned. She looked at Yili in shock, not expecting Yili to say such a thing. Suddenly, she sensed the aura on Yili, which didn't feel like the human aura, or the aura of a member of the dark race. You are very strange. Bone Maiden stared at Yili and said coldly, You haven't answered my question. Yili said lightly. The Bone Maiden sneered. Why should one follow you? Yili pondered for a few seconds, and then looked at the Bone Maiden and replied, I can give you anything you want. The Bone Maiden was stunned again. Looking at the confidence on Yili's face, she actually had a feeling that she had to believe him. If you can avenge me, I will follow you, the Bone Maiden said to Yili. Tell me your story, Yili said slowly. He had never been a person who would make others submit by force. Since this Bone Maiden still had a grudge, he might as well avenge her. Then, the Bone Maiden told Yili about her encounter. Bone Maiden was one of the guardians of the fire-worshipping sect. She had always objected to the fire-worshipping sect's research on medicines, that could improve the human genes, which attracted the dissatisfaction of a large number of people in the sect. The master of the fire-worshipping sect actually refined her into a zombie, and then made her keep swallowing zombies, becoming a 6th-tier zombie. In the end, the fire-worshipping sect master gave her to a powerful dark race member in the inner area of the Falling Rock mountain range. She was originally controlled by the powerful dark race member and lost her memories, but one day, she accidentally drank a strange water, and her memories were all restored. While the powerful member of the dark race wasn't paying attention, she escaped. Yili thought that this encounter was enough to make people sympathize with her. Fire-worshipping sect? He had just killed Zhao Yang, the young master of the fire-worshipping sect. There would be a battle with the fire-worshipping sect sooner or later, which could solve the matter of the Bone Maiden. Yili looked into the Bone Maiden's eyes. He felt that the Bone Maiden must have been a kind person before. After swallowing so many zombies, she still wasn't very ferocious. Hehe, do you still dare to make me follow you? The Bone Maiden looked at Yili in disdain. Yili nodded slightly and looked at the sun in the sky. Is the leader of the fire-worshipping sect very strong? Chapter 276. Drinking the Zombie Loyalty Elixir, a 9th-tier evolved being. Bone Maiden stared at Yili. Bone Maiden thought that after Yili knew the fire-worshipping sect's leader was a 9th-tier evolved being, he would be frightened. But to her surprise, Yili's expression remained unchanged. The leader of the Sky Eagle organization, Lan Shan, was also a 9th-tier evolved being. Since the fire-worshipping sect could confront the Sky Eagle organization, it meant that the fire-worshipping sect had strength comparable to the Sky Eagle organization. Yili had already guessed that the leader of the fire-worshipping sect was a 9th-tier evolved being. I might not be able to help you seek revenge right away, so promise to follow me first, Yili said slowly. Bone Maiden looked at Yili coldly. Although Yili had displayed terrifying strength just now, facing the massive fire-worshipping sect would be like an egg striking a rock. As one said before, one will follow you if you can help me seek revenge, Bone Maiden said coldly. When Yili had encountered Yutong at the West Mountain Burial Mound, he had purchased the Zombie Loyalty Elixir in the Points Mall. After drinking it, a zombie would become 100% loyal. Yili thought that since her memories wouldn't change after drinking it, he could help her seek revenge later. You don't have the power to refuse me right now, Yili said slowly. With that, Yili spent 10,000 points in the Points Mall to purchase a Zombie Loyalty Elixir. Drink it. Yili handed the Zombie Loyalty Elixir to Bone Maiden. Bone Maiden looked at the elixir in Yili's hand, and her expression grew even colder. It was clear that she didn't want to have anything to do with Yili. Seeing that Bone Maiden refused to take the elixir, Yili was about to say something when Ziqiong approached. Senior Demon King. After calling out to the Demon King, Ziqiong looked at Bone Maiden. With just one look, Ziqiong took 3 steps back in shock. A 6th-tier purple eye zombie? While watching from the sidelines, Ziqiong had heard about the recent high-level female zombie in the outer region of the Falling Stone Mountain Range. However, she had never expected it to be a 6th-level zombie. Once zombies reached the 6th tier, they were almost completely indifferent to humans. It was not like the level 1 to level 10 zombies that would attack humans as food. Yili paid no attention to Ziqiong and continued to look at Bone Maiden. Drink it. One don't want to say it a third time, Yili said slowly. Bone Maiden's stunningly beautiful face grew colder. She still had no intention of accepting the Zombie Loyalty Elixir from Yili. Take it. Although I don't know what this is, Senior Demon King won't harm you, Ziqiong blinked and said to Bone Maiden. Bone Maiden was taken aback by Ziqiong's words. Why wasn't this 3rd-tier evolved being girl afraid of a 6th-tier zombie like her? You're just a 6th-tier zombie. In Senior Demon King's Apocalypse Legion, there are 5 zombies that are all 8th-tier zombies. Then, Ziqiong explained the Apocalypse Legion's zombies to Bone Maiden. There was the Divine Fist zombie, Ada, the Ironfoot zombie, Baiwawa, the Ice zombie, Hongya the Petrification zombie, Yutong, and the Ghost Sword zombie Swordsmanship. Although Bone Maiden had a cold and unfeeling personality, hearing Ziqiang's explanation made her feel somewhat stunned. Bone Maiden looked at Yi Li, and for some reason, she suddenly felt an irresistible magical power emanating from him. Then, she reached out and took the zombie loyalty elixir without hesitation. Afterward, she drank it in one gulp. Once the zombie loyalty elixir was consumed, the zombie would become 100% loyal. "Don't worry, I will help you seek revenge," Yi Li said to Bone Maiden as he looked at her. "Yes, master." After drinking the zombie loyalty elixir, Bone Maiden showed a complete transformation in her attitude. Chapter 277. The Great Devouring Technique. Ziqiang was somewhat stunned. Just a moment ago, this 6th-tier female zombie didn't act this way. How did she suddenly address Demon King as her master? However, she soon understood. It must be due to that strange elixir. The Demon King's methods were truly extraordinary. Yi Li took a look at Bone Maiden's tattered clothes and thought about getting her a new set. He opened the points mall, where he now had an enormous number of points. After browsing the clothing section for a moment, he found a suitable outfit. Misty floral dress. Wearing it increases one's appearance value by +10. Price 20,000 points. For Yi Li, 20,000 points were a trivial sum. He purchased the misty floral dress without hesitation. After fusing the misty floral dress with Bone Maiden, she instantly became exceptionally beautiful. Her long, flowing hair cascaded like a waterfall. Her face was enchanting like a flower, and she, in the misty floral dress, looked like a fairy. As the saying goes, a fair maiden, a gentleman's ideal mate. If they were in China, Yi Li would definitely pursue Bone Maiden. Unfortunately, this was not China. Ziqiang was left dumbfounded. She rubbed her eyes, as if she couldn't believe how beautiful Bone Maiden had become. She clearly remembered that Bone Maiden had been filthy and ragged just a moment ago, but now she looked like a goddess who had descended to the mortal world. "She's too beautiful," Ziqiang exclaimed in shock as she looked at Bone Maiden. Yi Li secretly smiled. The misty floral dress, which he had bought for 20,000 points, naturally came with a +10 appearance boost. How could she not be beautiful? He checked the zombies in his system space. 1 3rd-tier male zombie, 1 5th-tier female zombie, and 1 1st-tier male and female zombie each. Now that Bone Maiden was a 6th-tier zombie, he should evolve her to the 7th tier. Yi Li used his heavenly spirit eye to check the surroundings, and found that there were quite a few zombies nearby. He released his Apocalypse Legion to lure them over. After tens of minutes, the Apocalypse Legion had lured a large number of zombies. As the sun set, Yi Li finally synthesized a 5th-tier zombie. He synthesized it with the 5th-tier zombie in his system space, turning them into a 6th-tier zombie. Then he synthesized the 6th-tier female zombie with Bone Maiden, making her a 7th-tier zombie. After reaching the 7th tier, Bone Maiden's purple eyes turned red. Yi Li checked Bone Maiden's attributes. Bone Maiden, 6th-tier zombie. Attribute: speed. Zombie skill: devour. Ding! Congratulations to the host for gaining a random lottery opportunity. Would you like to use it? Yes. The virtual pointer rapidly spun in the roulette and stopped after a few seconds. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the exclusive zombie skill, the Great Devouring Technique. Great Devouring Technique, D-level skill, capable of devouring everything when upgraded to S level. Yi Li thought that since Bone Maiden already had a devouring skill, this Great Devouring Technique should work better on her. Without much thought, Yi Li fused the Great Devouring Technique into Bone Maiden's body. By now, it was getting late, and Yi Li and Ziqiang were heading towards the Sky Eagle base. However, when they were nearing the Sky Eagle base, they encountered a large group of fire-worshipping sect members. These people were all 3rd-tier evolved beings, numbering in the hundreds. They made way as a seductive woman slowly approached. They made way as a seductive woman in her 30s wearing a red dress approached. Well, luck is on my side today. I've actually run into Zishan's daughter, the seductive woman said, looking at Ziqiang. Chapter 278. Do you know you're ugly? Ziqiang was taken aback. Fire-worshipping sex guardian? The seductive woman smiled. I didn't expect Miss Ziqiang to know that I'm a guardian of the fire-worshipping sect. Apart from the seductive woman, there were hundreds of fierce genetic warriors surrounding Yi Li and Ziqiang. Miss Ziqiang, your Sky Eagle organization killed my fire-worshipping sex junior master. Now that I've run into you, I must offer you to our master. The seductive woman smugly laughed, and her heavily made-up face was quite repulsive. Yi Li couldn't help but smile when he heard this. So, the fire-worshipping sect was pinning the blame on the Sky Eagle organization. Large forces like the fire-worshipping sect usually had the flame of life, and when the flame of life extinguished, it meant that the person was dead. The fire-worshipping sect had just captured hundreds of ordinary people from the Sky Eagle organization, so anyone would suspect that it was the Sky Eagle organization. Oh, there's also such a handsome little brother, the seductive woman said flirtatiously, looking at Yi Li. Yi Li smiled inwardly, wondering why there were so many stupid people in the world. The seductive woman was one of the fire-worshipping sex guardians, a 7th-tier evolved being, and a formidable presence in the wilderness northern region. Young man, what's your name? The seductive woman seemed captivated by Yi Li's appearance, smiling charmingly as she continued. Do you know that you're ugly? Yi Li replied nonchalantly. This statement stunned not only the seductive woman, but also the hundreds of fire-worshipping sex genetic warriors. They were all taken aback. How dare you say I'm ugly? The seductive woman was in complete shock. It was as if she would rather believe that the sky was falling than accept that Yi Li had said such a thing. Don't you think you're ugly? Yi Li asked in return. You. The seductive woman, as one of the guardians of the fire-worshipping sect, had never been called ugly by anyone before. She was so angry that she couldn't even speak coherently. I want you dead. A moment later, the seductive woman screamed and rushed towards Yi Li. Her hands turned into claws, exuding a strong aura, similar to the 9 white bone claws from martial arts novels. Yi Li shook his head slightly. Ants would always be ants. They never knew how high the sky and how vast the earth were. He slowly raised his finger, and golden spiritual light enveloped it as he pointed at the approaching seductive woman. Swish! A wind-breaking sound was heard. The seductive woman had originally thought that Yi Li was at most a low-level evolved being. However, she couldn't have imagined that Yi Li could unleash such a terrifying attack. She hurriedly dodged, narrowly avoiding Yi Li's attack. All the fire-worshipping sex genetic warriors, numbering over 100, were terrified. They realized they couldn't withstand the attack Yi Li had just unleashed. It was too horrifying. You're actually this strong. The seductive woman looked at Yi Li in astonishment. She had originally thought that Yi Li was merely hiding his true level. Yi Li hadn't spoken yet, but Ziqiang was the first to respond. Of course, if the Demon King wanted to kill you, it would be as simple as crushing an ant. After returning from the Falling Stone Mountain range, Ziqiang had already come to the conclusion that Senior Demon King was invincible in battle. Chapter 279. Let me tell you a secret. The seductive woman was shocked. Demon King. In the wilderness northern region, there was only one person referred to as the Demon King, and that was Yi Li, who was neither human nor a member of the dark race. Yi Li's reputation in the wilderness northern region was unparalleled, and everyone knew of him. Are you Yi Li the Demon King? The seductive woman asked in horror. With this statement, all the fire-worshipping sex genetic warriors took a sharp intake of breath. Box novel. Calm Demon King Yi Li? It was said that he was neither human nor a member of the dark race. He commanded the Apocalypse Legion that was composed of 8th-tier zombies. The Fist God Zombie, the Iron Foot Zombie, the Frost Zombie, the Petrification Zombie, and the Ghost Sword Zombie. Of course, at that time, Bone Maiden hadn't appeared yet. The Demon King himself was terrifying beyond comparison. He could fly high in the air, jump from tall buildings to flat ground, and walk across rivers and seas. Yes, this is the esteemed Senior Demon King Yi Li. You dare to block the path of the Demon King? One see you don't want to live. Ziqiang jeered beside Yi Li. Upon hearing this, the seductive woman gritted her teeth. But after a few seconds, she steadied herself. So what if you're the Demon King Yi Li? You're nothing in front of the fire-worshipping sect. The fire-worshipping sect was an absolute powerhouse in the wilderness northern region, and she didn't believe that Yi Li would dare to make a move against them. Unfortunately, the seductive woman couldn't fathom that the fire-worshipping sect's young master, Zhao Yang, wasn't killed by the Sky Eagle organization, but by Yi Li himself. Yi Li suddenly chuckled, his laughter calm. Demon King, why are you laughing? Am I not correct? The seductive woman asked coldly. Yi Li shook his head slowly. No, you're absolutely right. Yi Li hadn't finished speaking, and the seductive woman had already started to smile triumphantly, because she knew that even the Demon King Yi Li feared the fire-worshipping sect. However, the seductive woman couldn't have imagined that Yi Li hadn't finished speaking yet. Yi Li continued slowly. Before one kill, I usually smile. What? With this statement, both the seductive woman and the hundreds of fire-worshipping sect's genetic warriors were shocked and terrified. They couldn't have imagined that Yi Li had smiled for this reason. Yi Li, do you really want to be an enemy of our fire-worshipping sect? The seductive woman said coldly. This place wasn't far from the Sky Eagle organization's base, but there was still a distance. Yi Li had already scanned the area with his heavenly spirit eyes. The fire-worshipping sect's leader was not nearby. Apart from the fire-worshipping sect's leader, no one else could make Yi Li feel the slightest bit of concern. After a few moments of contemplation, Yi Li looked at the seductive woman and said, Actually, I've always wanted to tell you a secret, but I felt a bit embarrassed. What secret? The seductive woman eagerly asked. Well, actually, I killed your fire-worshipping sect's young master, Yi Li said casually. In other words, if Yi Li could even kill the fire-worshipping sect's young master, what were they? With this statement, the seductive woman and the hundreds of fire-worshipping sect's genetic warriors were shocked to the core. You killed the young master? The seductive woman's eyes widened, and she couldn't believe her ears. When she had first seen Yi Li, she thought he was extraordinarily handsome and charming. However, now, Yi Li was like a devil in her eyes. Chapter 280. The approaching battle. The seductive woman and the hundreds of fire-worshipping sect genetic warriors watched Yi Li in terror. They couldn't believe that their young master was actually killed by the Demon King Yi Li. Someone like you, do you think one Yi Li would dare not to kill? Yi Li said indifferently, gazing at the seductive woman. As one of the fire-worshipping sect's guardians, a seventh-tier evolved being, the woman could swear that she had never been as afraid as she was today. Hearing Yi Li's words, the seductive woman's face, smeared with makeup, became even more terrified. She looked at Yi Li in horror and swallowed hard, saying, Box novel. Calm, Demon King Yi Li. Even if you and your Apocalypse Legion are very powerful, we have so many people. Before the seductive woman could finish her sentence, Yi Li interrupted her. Why don't you understand? In my eyes, you are just pitiful ants, Yi Li said calmly. With those words, Yi Li released the Apocalypse Legion from his system space. 5 8-tier zombies and 1 7th-tier zombie. When the fire-worshipping sect saw this lineup in front of them, they couldn't help but take 3 steps back, their souls trembling in fear. Is this the Apocalypse Legion? The seductive woman's voice trembled violently, and even her soul couldn't stop shaking. Are you ready? A playful expression appeared on Yi Li's handsome face. The seductive woman and the hundreds of fire-worshipping sect's genetic warriors naturally understood what Yi Li meant, but they were so terrified that they couldn't speak. Ziqiang watched from Yi Li's side. She didn't know why, but when she saw how terrified the seductive woman and the fire-worshipping sect's genetic warriors were, she felt a sense of delight. Demon King Yi Li, you can't kill us. We are members of the fire-worshipping sect. The seductive woman's words were not finished yet, and she would never have the chance to finish them. Yi Li had already used the swift steps and appeared in front of the seductive woman, his finger already falling. The 7th-tier evolved being, the seductive woman, widened her eyes, unable to believe that she just died like this. The hundreds of fire-worshipping sect's genetic warriors saw this scene and were so frightened that they felt their strength draining from their bodies, collapsing to the ground. "Kill them all," Yili ordered the Apocalypse Legion. With those words, Yili slowly walked forward. Ziqiang, who was still beside Yili, watched as he walked a few steps away before hurrying to catch up. At this moment, under the City of the Sky Eagle Organization's base, there were countless members of the fire-worshipping sect, and the number of genetic warriors was beyond count. These genetic warriors all wore black robes with 3 glaring characters embroidered on them. Fire-worshipping sect. In the Sky Eagle Organization's base, numerous genetic warriors held specially made laser guns, and the battle was about to begin. In front of the fire-worshipping sect's genetic warriors, there were more than a dozen people. They were the fire-worshipping sect's leader, 2 elders, and 10 guardians. Of course, there were only 9 guardians now. On top of the city wall of the Sky Eagle Organization's base, Zishan stood with the core members of the Sky Eagle Organization, facing off against the fire-worshipping sect. These 2 sides were evenly matched in strength. Both the Sky Eagle Organization and the fire-worshipping sect were superpowers in the Wilderness Northern region, and their strengths were not far apart. If they were to go to war, it would undoubtedly shake the heavens and the earth. Chapter 281. The heavy sword-wielding undead Zishan. Your Sky Eagle organization killed my son. I want everyone in the Sky Eagle base to accompany him in death. A middle-aged man shouted coldly. The middle-aged man had a dignified appearance with sharp brows like a sword, a pair of fierce leopard-like eyes, and a silver basin-like face. This middle-aged man was none other than the leader of the fire-worshipping sect, a 9th-tier evolved being named Zhao Shao. Zhao Shao, are you stupid or insane? What does your son's death have to do with our Sky Eagle organization? Box novel. Calm Zishan's face showed a hint of amusement. The Sky Eagle organization had never feared the fire-worshipping sect, and he was curious to see what tricks Zhao Shao wanted to play. When Zhao Shao heard this, he was furious, and he stared at Zishan. Zishan, one want your life. Flatten the Sky Eagle base for me. Zhao Shao roared in anger, and with his command, countless genetic warriors of the fire-worshipping sect began to attack the city. Unfortunately, the Sky Eagle base was easy to defend but difficult to attack, and countless members of the fire-worshipping sect were killed or injured. Big brother, is Zhao Shao crazy? Could it be that his son really died? Jiang Feng was puzzled. With such an attack, did Zhao Shao want all the members of the fire-worshipping sect to die? Who cares? Since he wants to come and die, let them. Tiani replied indifferently. Zishan smiled and thought that after today, there might not be the name fire-worshipping sect in the Wilderness Northern region anymore. Senior Demon King, what should we do? Ziqiang looked at Yili and asked in a low voice. Let's watch for now, Yili replied calmly. At this moment, Yili and Ziqiang were watching the earth-shattering battle not far away. The fire-worshipping sect's genetic warriors kept falling from the city wall, and blood was flowing like a river beneath the wall. Leader, if this continues, our fire-worshipping sect will lose all our members, one of the fire-worshipping sect's elders said to Zhao Shao. What are you afraid of? The dark race members from the falling rock mountain range will come to support us soon, Zhao Shao said coldly. Not long after he spoke, a long howl echoed through the sky. Everyone stopped their hands and looked up at the sky. When they saw what was happening, they were all stunned. In the sky, a heavy sword-wielding undead was flying over on a giant eagle. This heavy sword-wielding undead wore a bright red cloak and held a bladeless heavy sword in its hand, looking majestic and awe-inspiring. Immediately afterward, the ground began to tremble. Everyone looked in the same direction, and suddenly countless heavy sword-wielding undead and zombies were approaching. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead from the falling rock mountain range. Jiang Feng, the second leader of the Sky Eagle organization, was shocked. Zishan's face also became extremely solemn. He never expected that the fire-worshipping sect would join forces with the heavy sword-wielding undead clan from the falling Rock Mountain range, to attack the Sky Eagle organization. Defend against the enemy. We will use every means to stop them, Zishan said in a deep voice. He knew that today's battle would definitely be the most terrifying one the Sky Eagle organization had ever encountered in its history. Well, Ziqiang's eyes widened, and she looked at Yili in shock. With so many heavy sword-wielding undead and zombies, could the Sky Eagle base hold on? A look of excitement appeared on Yili's handsome face. He felt that his luck had finally come. The heavy sword-wielding undead led the way, followed by a massive horde of zombies. When the zombie horde passed by, Yili ordered the Apocalypse Legion to act. There were conservatively estimated to be at least 100,000 zombies. The 6 zombies of the Apocalypse Legion acted, and the zombies began to fall in groups. Yili opened the synthesis grid in his mind and began synthesizing madly. Chapter 282. Assembly line synthesis in Yili's mind. His virtual fingers were moving at an extraordinary speed. Zombies were falling in large numbers, and Yili was continuously synthesizing. He used these synthesized zombies to attack the other zombies. This was working as efficiently as an assembly line. The process was absolutely terrifying. However, the heavy sword-wielding undead clan had no awareness of this, because there were simply too many zombies. Box novel. Calm. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan had already reached the base walls of the Sky Eagle base. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead, perched on a giant eagle, was staring at Zishan. Zishan, your Sky Eagle organization killed my son. Today, not a single person from your Sky Eagle base will escape. Zhao Xiao spoke coldly. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead chuckled. Zishan, it's been years, and I never thought that I would be taking your life as soon as we met. Zishan stared at the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead upon hearing this. If he had only been facing the fire-worshipping sect, along with the easily defensible walls, there would be no chance for the fire-worshipping sect to win. However, now with the heavy sword-wielding undead clan and this massive zombie horde, the Sky Eagle base was in grave danger. Speaking of zombies, Zishan suddenly looked at the huge zombie horde. Then it rendered him almost speechless. He had actually seen zombies fighting each other. Moreover, several high-tier zombies were systematically defeating the others. These high-tier zombies looked somewhat. Suddenly, Zishan thought of the Apocalypse Legion. Could it be the work of the Demon King? It was widely known that only the Demon King, who was neither human nor a member of the Dark Race, could control zombies in the wilderness northern region. Aside from the Apocalypse Legion, other zombies were also fighting each other. Could this also be the work of Demon King Yili? Zishan's eyes widened. He noticed this, so did everyone else on the city walls. Leader, do you see what's happening? One of the fire-worshipping sect's elders exclaimed. Immediately, all the members of the fire-worshipping sect turned their attention in one direction. How is that possible? All the members of the fire-worshipping sect took in a sharp breath, and the scene was something they couldn't have imagined even if they had dreamt it for 10 days and nights. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead, perched on the giant eagle, naturally saw this as well. Even though his face had no flesh and no eyes, one could still feel the extreme shock on his face and in his pupils. This was the shock coming from a 9th-tier Dark Race member. Yili's face became more and more exhilarated. This wave of zombie synthesis was simply too satisfying. However, Ziqiang had frozen in place and couldn't come back to her senses for a long time. She had already thought that Yili was powerful, but she had never expected that the strength she had seen was just the tip of the iceberg. When Yili realized that he had been discovered, he knew he couldn't stay any longer. He quickly ordered the Apocalypse Legion to retreat, along with the synthesized zombies. He had already synthesized over 30,000 zombies, and these 30,000 zombies must not go to waste. What a pity! There were still 70,000 zombies left. Soon, the Apocalypse Legion, with over 30,000 zombies, retreated to Yili's side. Shortly after the retreat, a voice from the system sounded in Yili's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining a chance to randomly draw a prize. Would you like to use it? Yes. The virtual pointer began to spin in the roulette. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the exclusive skill of the Heavenly Tower, Purgatory Suppression. Congratulations to the host for obtaining an opportunity to experience the SSS grade Purgatory Suppression skill. Purgatory Suppression, S-grade skill, integrated into the Heavenly Tower, capable of suppressing all things. Chapter 283. Your son was killed by me. Yi Li's face showed a brilliant expression as he immediately integrated the Purgatory Suppression skill into the Heavenly Tower. Purgatory Suppression was currently an S-grade skill, but he had the chance to experience it once at the SSS grade. Silence, a deadly silence. Yi Li stood in place like a sword soaring into the sky. The world's attention was focused on him. Box novel. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead was shocked. He led the heavy sword-wielding undead clan, along with over 100,000 zombies here. However, more than 30,000 had run to the other side. Now there were just over 40,000 zombies left. Even if there weren't exactly 100,000 zombies, 3 plus 4 still equaled 7,000. The 30,000 zombies by Yi Li's side were synthesized zombies, with 2 combining to create 1. Thus, over 60,000 synthesized zombies had turned into over 30,000. Zhao Xiao stared at Yi Li intently. Who are you? Yi Li smiled faintly and replied calmly, Yi Li. The Demon King Yi Li? Zhao Xiao exclaimed in surprise. He had heard of the Demon King Yi Li before, but he hadn't regarded Yi Li highly. He was just someone who had recently gained fame in the wilderness northern region. However, now that he saw it for himself, Zhao Xiao realized how terrifying the Demon King Yi Li truly was. This unprecedented ability was extremely terrifying. You are the fire-worshipping sect's leader, right? Yi Li looked at Zhao Xiao indifferently. That's right, Zhao Xiao replied coldly. His only son, Zhao Yang, was dead, and now he just wanted everyone in the Sky Eagle base to accompany his son in death. I'm curious, why did you come here? Yi Li looked at Zhao Xiao indifferently. Zhao Xiao's expression turned cold. What does it have to do with you? In Zhao Xiao's eyes, Yi Li already knew that his son had been killed by the Sky Eagle organization. He thought Yi Li was taunting him. Yi Li smiled and said, Let me guess. You must have come here for your deceased son. Unfortunately, you missed one thing. With that statement, Zhao Xiao was momentarily stunned. He stared at Yi Li, clearly wanting to know Yi Li's next words. Actually, your son was killed by me, Yi Li said calmly. Yi Li was the kind of person who took responsibility for his actions and didn't like to shift blame onto others. Upon hearing this, Zhao Xiao was initially stunned for a few seconds before exploding in anger. It was you who killed my son. Yi Li's face remained unchanged, and he smiled faintly. In the wilderness northern region, good people don't die, and bad people don't die. Only foolish people die. With that, Yi Li slightly lowered his head and looked directly at Zhao Xiao. A cold light flashed in his pupils. Obviously, your son is a foolish person, daring to provoke me, the Demon King Yi Li said with a cold smile. Although Yi Li's voice wasn't loud, it definitely wasn't soft either. Everyone present was a genetic warrior with extraordinary hearing, and they all heard Yi Li's words. The fire-worshipping sect's 2 elders, 9 guardians, and genetic warriors were all shocked and astounded. They had originally thought that the young master had been killed by someone from the Sky Eagle organization, because only the Sky Eagle organization would dare to do such a thing in the eastern part of the wilderness northern region. However, they never could have imagined the truth. The culprit was none other than the notorious Demon King Yi Li. Demon King Yi Li? The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead snapped out of his daze and muttered this name. This was the first time he had heard this name. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan resided in the inner part of the Fallen Stone Mountain range, and they were unaware of events happening outside. What Yi Li had just displayed had greatly frightened this 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. However, he couldn't sense any aura of the dark race from Yi Li's body. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.